Welcome to Higher PhD's Alternative Career Path Success Stories series. I am Connie Lin, your host today. So one of our Career Society's mission is to help people with masters and PhDs to navigate careers outside of academia. Well, PhD and masters learn many transferable skills that can be applicable to many jobs and industries. However, one challenge for us to get jobs outside of academia is that we don't know what our options are out there. So this ACPSS series objective is to showcase stories of people with masters or PhDs who have made a successful transition outside to a non-academic career path that you might or might not know about. So if you're interested in hearing more about the stories, please subscribe down below to get notified of our upcoming videos. And today, I'm super excited to introduce to you Michael Liu, who founded 2 companies. And currently, he's a director in carbon technology and a researcher at Performance Biofilaments. Welcome. We're so thrilled to have you today. Hi, Michael.
Yeah,
could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. As Connie introduced, I co-founded 2 companies earlier in the forest product biotechnology sector. They're named Carbon Technologies as well as Timber Biotech. I had a master's degree in wood science at UBC, and that really gave me the foundational knowledge and then research experience in the forest product biotechnology sector. As well as I'm also a researcher at Performance Biofilaments. Performance Biofilaments is also a forest product biotechnology company, but they're in a different area of focus. So they are in the nanofibrillated cellulose, which is a nano-based biomaterial, whereas the 2 companies I co-founded, it's more like a wood-based activated carbon. So that's a little bit of my background there.
So how do you handle those juggling 2 jobs at the same time? And then for the audience, like me and Michael are actually classmates in a professional MBA program right now. Like you're juggling so much, Michael. Like how do you do it?
Yeah. So let me start with Performance Biofilaments. They're equally important to me. That's actually where I work full time. So like from 9 to 5, I'm in the research and development lab there. We fulfill some internal research projects, partnership research projects, as well as prepare samples for our partners externally that have business development and joint R&D efforts. And our external include not just corporations, but also government-funded labs and academics. And it's the same story with my wood-based activated carbon, which can carbon technology. We also partner with quite closely with academics, researchers, partners, and government-funded labs, as well as companies. Yeah, and how do I juggle them? Besides after the full time, I'm very fortunate. I have great business partners. We have a very clear divided roles. Right now, Carbon Technologies is in the project. We're in the project phase, where we're focusing on research and development, applying for fundings like grants, and therefore and we just need to coordinate with each other with assigned roles. So that's very manageable. And study, and Connie can relate to this. Study is taking also most of the weekend time in the evenings. Yeah.
So like I know that when I talked to you and I heard you funded like 2 companies, that's like wow, it's the dream of so many masters and PhDs. Can you tell us like what happened? Like how did you make it happen?
How did I make it happen?
So yeah, how did it happen?
I really want to give a background story in that.
Yeah.
So I met my business partners at a fiber procurement dinner. So when I worked with one of the previous pulp mill at New South, we purchased fiber from various forest operator and landowners. One of them hosted this dinner, and that's where I met my future present business partner. At the dinner, we're talking about how what we can utilize with the waste wood that's in very, very significant volume, that often does not have any sufficient economic value and just gets burned for forest fire preventions. And the idea they came up with was to they have a background in the mining sector, so they want to use that, convert that into a biochar, like a charcoal, and then use that as a reducing agent for monocrystalline silica, which is important raw material for making solar panels and things like in that area. And therefore we started exploring where about would be we can set up a potential plant. And at that time, I worked very closely on Vancouver Island as well as other sectors. And through the Ministry of Innovation at that time from the province, they introduced us to various cities, and we visited them and looked for sites. And ultimately, we picked a site on the Vancouver Island. However, market is dynamic. I think it's really important to recognize that. The market for the reducing agent for the charcoal has evolved, so it's not as profitable. We didn't see it on the business model. It did not meet the cost structure, and then we decided to further modify it with steam activation. So we actually make steam activated carbon. And that's used for pharmaceutical industry environmental remediation, which better fits the business model. And that's what we produced in Pu'er Burning for Cantimber Biotech. Okay.
Sorry, I'm muting. It's like now, like I can hear I know you have more stories about starting up companies. What are the challenges and then pros and cons of doing it? Like, because our audience will be sitting there listening to a story like, should I do it or should I not do it? Everybody is different, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I got that question from quite a few people who were going to graduate from the graduate program from various area of expertise. My suggestion is it's really exciting. Being an entrepreneur is that there's a cliche saying when you wake up 5:30 and you feel excited and you'll never work another day if you find your passion. And that was true for me. Being an entrepreneur, especially in the operation stage of our company, we have 8 o'clock meetings in the morning to review the plant operations day, and you have 10 o'clock meeting in the evening. So it's really, really long day. And because we're a very small management group, we only are a group of 4. Like most startups, you will have a small team of management, and therefore you will have a really diverse role, you day in and day out. So it evolved. Like at the beginning, it was a lot of project management. We had to put the plan together in 6 months, which is a lot of people thought it was almost impossible to do. But through a lot of coordination, and plus my business partner had the experience setting up plants elsewhere in the world, which really helped. That we were able to accomplish that, but that involved a lot of multitasking. So we had to talk to, I had to connect with a lot of engineering, first of all, with all the contracts there, regulators, like safety authority at that time, and Port Authority where we were, as well as environmental regulations, so the Ministry of Environment as well. There's many sectors that roles that I had to work in. As well as I had to work on negotiating the supply contract, fiber supply, raw materials. I had to build a quality control and QA lab. And then I had to do business development, apply for research grants with NSERC and partnering with UBC Lab, as well as marketing. It's a lot. I was working with the North American clients, customers. Yeah, so it's really very diverse, and as you can imagine, my day is filled with different tasks. It's very challenging, but it's something that you can. It's really important that you have the right partner who share the same vision and the passion. Ideally, with somebody with more experience. And for our case, we went the unconventional route for funding, because usually you apply for government grant, and then you go to the rounds. Whereas this Cantimber, when they start out, we were funded by the partner themselves. So we kind of took out the pocket money and we assembled the funds together that way. And that sometimes makes finance easier, but you're taking on more risks that way. And it turned out it was risky, and yeah.
So
All
like,
right.
yeah, now you're talking about the funding, like your the way you got it through was through personal funding. And then do
That's
you
right.
know, like for, in that world, you will know what are the options that other people have. I know that's one of the biggest barriers that people say. How do I get people to invest in my idea?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. For because I'm from the STEM sector, like forest product biotechnology. I'm sure it's same for biotech or in many, many engineering disciplines. Normally, company like, for example, Performance Biofilaments, I think they started with they're actually a different story. If you're on your own, you will apply for a government grant. That's usually because there's a lot of risk involved in this, and quite often, the venture funds and the banks and all that, they don't want to be involved in that risk. Whereas the government program, like NSERC, MyTax, which all support our research, they're willing to take that risk. And that's how usually you get started. And what's also important is that they help you build a network. They also give you a lot of information on how to start, and give you some funding to start and validate the ideas before further investment is justified.
That's very interesting. Actually, that I also heard that before, that government will invest on the risky, and then once
Yes.
you over the proof of concept, then you move to the actual venture, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay,
There's
that's very
readiness
cool. Yeah.
levels. So it depends where you are with your project. The readiness level will that's a guideline, which program you can apply for in your respective discipline.
Oh, okay. Then thank you. That's a very good advice for our audience. If you're looking at which stage of your research ideas or the business ideas are. I was hearing that you talked about as a entrepreneur, you have to wear so many hats throughout the day. So another question that the audience often asks is like, what is the pros and cons of being an entrepreneur in your perspective, and how would you recommend them to do it or
Yeah.
not? Yeah.
So the pros are definitely, for me, it was like an opportunity to bring technology to the market. It has to be a really solution-driven process, and with risk comes with the potential reward. I mean, one of the rewards of being an entrepreneur is to see the business grow. I really passionate about seeing a technology that went from a concept to pilot plan, lab scale, and then to commercial scale. And that's a really enjoyable process to see how that idea expanded into full operation. How those products are being used by companies like pharmaceutical companies for ours. We're also working very excitingly future on the also electrochemical applications. So those are exciting for me. Definitely there's cons. The cons is that it's a huge commitment from time perspective, huge commitment from opportunity cost. So when I work with Contimber Biotech, I spent months away from home and work extremely long hours. And as an entrepreneur, you may or may not get paid very well for that, justify for your effort. So it's something that at the beginning, that's why my partner told me, Michael, just so you know, most of the business that actually fails. Can you accept the consequences of losing your retirement savings to contribute to my retirement saving? And I took time to think about it. It's important to talk to my family, and they're quite supportive, understanding the risk. And then that's something that's really definitely need to consider. And yeah, I think that's the part that end up to be quite costly.
Yeah, I think that you really touched on people are thinking about this. Like, my next question is like, how do you deal with failure? And it's like right
Mm.
now I'm a lot older, even though I have Botox on, so I look younger.
I can
But
tell.
it's like right now I'm like, oh my god, if you ask me right now to risk my retirement fund, I'm like, I don't have another 20 years to save, right? So like,
Yeah.
okay, the question back to you is like, at that time you think through all that process, and then later on, like, how do you deal with the company fail? How did you feel at that time, and what did you do after that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, in terms of sustainable and profitable operation, the company could be could did not achieve its objective. But in terms of delivering a manufacturing plan based on the concept, executing our engineering and construction plans, and making a product that was potentially profitable to the market, we were successful. So that company is actually interesting. It wasn't really much about the tech and the market, but it was more like socio-economical challenges we faced that ultimately we had to make the hard decision we made. And failing in terms for the company, one of the things we did focus on after that was to improve the cost structure, which is related to technology. Cantimber had a very batch process, and it's very labor intensive, and productivity is low. That's why we founded CanCarbon. CanCarbon uses a continuous pyrolysis process, which is much more efficient, have a higher output, and requires less, more automated, less human or manually intensive tasks. I think in that side, we're quite successful. But at the same time, CanCarbon also is now looking for stages of funding, going back to that. And we're also working towards the goal. I think it is about deliverables and the goals that we set at the beginning. We're quite happy that we achieved that with the given amount of time and resources. But when it failed, when we decided to shut it, it was a collective decision. So it's really important to be an entrepreneur where, at the moment of failure, I'm very proud of our group is that there's no finger pointing. It was a collective decision. I know there will be moments for many of us that we may be emotionally attached to your company. But sometimes rationale have to step in. You realize, okay, this may not be going to be a sustainable, profitable operation. Then you have to stop, have a thought, develop and go to a new route, start, put everything together and come up with a new solution, and then proceed with that. Yeah, so that was really hard lesson for all of us, but then we got through it, and that's where CanCarbon came along.
This is a really good story, because it's very rare you're gonna go into a career panel, you're gonna talk about like how entrepreneurs fail, but we need to know how it feels, like how do we deal with it. So we're so curious. And also like in master and PhD research, we fail. We joke we fail 70% of the time. When the experiment worked today, I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
Right. So
yes,
I think we have prepared ourselves for handling failure and know when to stop, right? How do you feel that your masters have prepared you for that?
I went through quite a bit in my masters in terms of that mental toughness, the resilience, the adaptability, ultimately it shaped also into diligence for me. So it was very interesting. My master project actually evolved over time. And I started working on enzymes originally and hydrolysis. Try not to get too technical with it. We had a change in my project supervisor, and then my project changed as well. But and then we also attempt a very ambitious project, which I was forewarned that it may or may not work. There's a probability it did not, and then it ended up not working. So there's almost a year of my master's that the data did not work out very well. But I quickly pivot and switch to a project that's more predictable, and that we had some better solutions that improve the yield. And that became the core of my master's thesis, which is more or less just another year of work. So that's that. The other thing that I'd like to share with our master and PhD student is that get exposed to different projects, not just focusing on your own. So when I say that, is that I had my own projects when I was in forestry, but my supervisor also had like a partnership with companies. There's a spent liquor that they were working on, and it wasn't part of it. Never ended up on my thesis, never had a paper, but I worked on it. And what's interesting is that spent sulfite liquor actually helped me get into NuSil. So NuSil is the other sulfite pulp mill, one of the 2 or 3 only at the time in Canada. I ended up working with them. So you never know.
That's actually a very, very it's a common thread that I hear from successful people who have expanded outside is that thread of looking around and not just focus on your own thing, right? Yeah,
for sure. Help your lab mates if they have interesting project. It's always interesting to get involved. Something you definitely learn something, but for me, it's also it changes how you think, because everybody have different perspective. When you work with different groups, different people, whether it's internally in your group or externally somebody else is outside, you get new perspective on how to solve problems in all of your future career. That's something that's not going to change. They said many things change, many not. Well, coming up with solutions, it's one of those tasks you will never change. And anywhere you have to go, you have to solve problems.
Yeah, and then more brains better than just you sticking yourself in your own room, right?
So get out the comfort zone, try to work with different people. That also really helps for your career.
And another, I was gonna build on the advice that you get is what are other transferable skill you think that masters and PhD have is good for entrepreneurship or any of the job that you hold before? Feel free to elaborate.
One of the manager actually told me about this. I thought it was quite interesting. So he's our procurement and supply chain manager. We were talking about how I can support his part of work. And I told him I have no experience working with procurement, supply chain, and all that. But he told me something very interesting, is that you don't realize this, but actually graduate school prepares you to be an excellent analyst. And the analysis skill translates to different disciplines. You may think you're just specifically good at analyzing, for me at that time was hydrolysis and fermentation and data. But actually, when I applied those skill sets to analyze, I ended up did a really good job of really transitioning to use a renewable fuel, because our bunker fuel, like the fossil fuel, gets expensive and is polluting. So I use those analytical skills and compare different options for the plant. And that was actually one of the most rewarding experience I had at that job was to ultimately we found out that we could use wood pellets to displace fossil fuel. And it's not only cleaner and more sustainable, we actually got a funding from the Pacific Carbon Trust, which is the carbon tax funded part of that transitional project. And what ended up happening was that the accountant came back to me a year later and said, "Oh, Michael, after we switched to wood pellets, biofuel, we actually saved $1 million in fuel costs for the pulp mill." So that was significant. So we need to understand if you use the analytical skill, present those options to the management and the decision makers, sustainability and profitability, they often do not. We know we're in a world where people say there's a price to pay for sustainability, and that comes off your profit. It's not true. I totally went through a process and experience where it's sustainable at the same time it's more profitable.
So, win-win solution. That's all. I always I believe there's always something. Just think harder. Right.
Yeah, for sure. And that really stamped off my passion and my analytical ability from graduate school. Yeah.
That is really refreshing to hear. And then another question that on the reverse side of the question that people often ask is like, so what am I missing? Is there something I should work on before I decided to go to this route? Like, what is master and PhD people usually missing that we should work on now?
Yeah. I think master and PhD people who successfully complete the program, generally, definitely there's intellectual ability. There's definitely ability to solve problems and very resilient. But what I often see that when you're in a graduate program is that you have to understand at work. For me, there's two main components, right? Two main elements: working with people and working with the task on hand. I think people skills are extremely important to develop during your graduate study, because you quite often, in the academic community, they truly support each other because all your contribution is the body of knowledge. Once you get to the industry, your contribution goes to the shareholders, just so we know. Then it's more about profitability, and there's more of that involved. And people are gonna be not so often. People in the industry end up at a position where you're kind of in the middle of company, maybe not the top director, or after graduate program, you're usually also not on the really technical side, but you end up in the role in the management. And for the key thing about being successful in management is not just your intellectual ability. It's your people skill. It's your soft skill. I keep saying, how effectively do you build a high performance team? As Connie and I can relate to the courses we've taken, and how effectively can you communicate? What can you bring efficiency, and all that are skills quite often overlooked during your graduate program, because whether you pass your thesis defense, very little of that judgment is on your people skill. Well, it's embedded in there. They don't test you per se in the people skill. They test you on the technical skill, and that's where you earn your degree. Where the people skill is extremely important. I have to say, I had to learn a long way after I graduated. Yeah, so that's
I'll totally
it.
echo this. As a project manager dealing with his own communications. Like, that's very important.
Yeah, emotional intelligence. That's extremely important. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a very good advice. And then I know, Michael, you're not just about who you are right now and what you started off right after. I know in the middle, you have gone through many cool stuff. Like, people go check out Michael's LinkedIn. It's really cool. So I want to ask, like, so what is your, people are thinking about, also another question we often ask is, like, what is the growth opportunity? Like, once I get into this entrepreneur route, what if I fail? Then what do I do next? And then, how will my career look if I go this route 20 years later? Like, what do you see? What's your experience?
So it's definitely a very exciting career route. Definitely, if you're a successful entrepreneur, you do get the spotlights, and you do get the recognition. You do face a lot of challenge, but along the way, you'll be really, really thankful that you actually have really great team of people to work with you. It's very rare in today's, especially in the STEM sector, where you're gonna kind of build your own company and just kind of operating on your own, like some consultant does with a technical background. But most of the time, the company who develop technology and actually create products usually work with a team, and that's truly the most exciting part of the career, is to work with people who share the mission, the vision with you, and along the way come through the challenges. And for you yourself, you will realize once you find whatever technology or whatever concept you have, and see that grow into a business, potentially into a big business. I'm sure you will find your own example of what's on the news and the finance sector and all those companies. They all most of them started with a concept and with a few people who share that dream and grow. and that's the most exciting part for your career. And along the way, you will also learn many things. Being entrepreneurs is not just about technical. I have to emphasize. In fact, I ended up realizing, looking back, the lab and the R&D side actually took up less than a third of my time. Most of the time as an entrepreneur is on the on building the company, working internally and externally to get resources, to allocate resources for growth.
Yeah, well, thank you. This is very inspiring. And now, like the final two questions, like anything now you know what you know. Is there anything differently you might have done? You think you want to do differently? Yeah.
Yes, and this became very obvious. I would highly recommend doing or studying on your own, or more like an MBA program before you start a business.
We're doing a reverse.
We're doing a reverse, right? I'm totally doing this in reverse. Because one concept really struck me, and Connie can relate to this. When we took economics class with Isaac, he introduced the concept of externality on that chapter. I really think if I had taken that and learned more in externality, Ken Timber would be in a different location, in a very because we were too close to a resident, where we had another site where it was in a more industrial zone, is really far away from any sort of residence, and that really made a difference ultimately for that business to continue. So that's very interesting. So take MBA, or at least do your own studies in that. And the other part is that I would have be more thoughtful about the risk. I know it's easy to be very optimistic at the beginning. If I had to have an advice for future entrepreneurs who watches this video, try to assess whether you're committing all your resources, your time, your money, and your efforts, and all that in a more pessimistic way. What if things doesn't work out? And take a deeper thought in that. And quite often you will end up with a situation where I'm doing today, is that you will have a part-time job, so you have a full-time job where it kind of secure your income and you sustain your expenses in life, and it's expensive to live in Vancouver. and at the same time, try to allocate sacrifice some of your leisure time and turn that into your business and build your company along that way, or somewhere intertwined between. Because if you don't have that passion to sacrifice that leisure time for your company, you don't have enough drive for it. And if you don't have that drive, the chances are there's going to be enough challenges for your company along the way where you're going to hit a roadblock and you're going to stumble. Having the hard work and diligence is just the ticket to get into entrepreneurship. And I remember asking one of my chairman, as I mentioned, one of the polymer company, the biggest of it in China. When I worked with him, he's actually the 11th richest man in China by Forbes. And there's also another kind of billionaire I work with, and they gave me the same answer. I asked them, what's your recipe for success? And the consistency is that I mentioned this because you speak Mandarin, and I'll translate this into English. The message is 小富在勤，大富在天. So that translates into, if you want to become a millionaire, it's about hard work. It's about diligence. But if you want to be a billionaire, it's luck. It's by chance. And I think they're really humble in the way they're saying it. It's by chance. But it's how you prepare yourself for the challenges. They came along with they overcame a lot of challenges, made a really good decision, and neither of them had a PhD or master's. It's very apparent that and they may not be as technical, knowledgeable about their plant operation as many people would think successful entrepreneur would have on the technical side, but they definitely have excellent people skill. How they communicate, how efficiently they communicate, and how thoughtful they analyze all the business decision, and how they come up with a strategy. Strategy is not planning. Strategy often is evolving, given the political, the market context that they emphasized, and those are the things that's more important to be a successful entrepreneur. So yeah, I mean, again, just coming back to the same theme, graduate program prepare you for the technical knowledge, your intelligence that way. But after PhD, after graduate program, focus on emotional intelligence and people skills. That's actually what's gonna get you further in your career. Yeah. And it's very common to see, the big business owners have that qualities.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all that advice. And then I was like mesmerized by on the wisdom that you shared with us. Like, is there any last advice you want to share with your audience? Or
Truly, this is find your passion. You will never work another day in your life. That's what one of my managers told me. And you will know your passion when you are able to sacrifice your leisure time to work on it, and you still feel extremely rewarding. And that's when you know you found it, and you should carry along with it.
Oh, thank you. That's very, very inspiring, Michael. Thank you for your story and the words of wisdom. Everyone, if you like today's episode and want to hear more about career journeys, please click like and subscribe down below. We'll be back with more education and informative videos to help you with your career transition. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Colin.